One thing I want to tell you a little bit about myself. Cliff mentioned a couple of things about me. I've got a finance degree. I also have an MBA in strategy. I have an MSIE, which is a master's in innovation and entrepreneurship. And some of the topics we're going to talk about today, business model innovation, comes from that coursework. I also have a master's in accounting, and I'm currently working on a doctorate in finance. My undergraduate was at University of North Texas. My master's was at University of Texas at Dallas. And I'm working on a doctorate in finance at Sacred Heart University in Connecticut. So a little bit more about myself. I'm from Dallas, Texas, by way of Montreal, Canada, Antigua in the Caribbean, and the UK. I'm a finance professional, management consultant, a real estate broker, a motivational speaker, an actor, a business connector, and a coach. For individuals, I add value primarily by helping them with the three most important things in their lives: their business, their homes or real estate, and their children. Over the past 25 years, I've helped people build profitable businesses, buy and sell real estate, and help their children secure college scholarships as student athletes. Any of you who know me, you know on Sundays, every Sunday, I'm at a track and I'm working with kids that are football players, basketball players, track and field, pretty much anything. If you're looking for speed and development, and then also the mentorship. And I've done that over the years, and it's afforded me an opportunity to touch people's lives and give back to young men and women as they're going through high school and going on to college. And I have a couple of kids that have graduated college. I've got a young man who's a private pilot right now, and I've got other kids that are working in business right now. So in life, you know, we are gifted with certain tools, and our goal in life is to help use those tools and try to enrich and provide value not only to ourselves, but to the communities that we live in, to the people that we come in contact with. And that's something that I've tried to do, because at some point, we'll look back and we'll realize that someone else has touched our lives, and some of the opportunities that we have, some of the privileges that we enjoy come to us as a result of our relationships and our interactions with other folks and things that they've done to help us along the way. Additionally, for firms or for companies, I've added value by helping companies raise capital, structure capital, consulted on corporate governance, boards, advisory boards, and finance committees. And to date, the value of all my interaction, personal and professional, the impact exceeds over $1 billion. So when I was working in banking, when I've worked in structured finance, I've worked in real estate, the value of everything that I've done as a professional has exceeded over $1 billion, right? What I would challenge each of you to do is to go back and look at yourself also. And even there's some jobs that you might think, well, you know, they were menial jobs. Those jobs and those opportunities, if you start looking at the impact that you've had, each of you have had great impact with your jobs, also in the community, and folks that you've come in contact with over your professional career. One of the things that I like to say is that I'm an entrepreneur, right? I grew up as an entrepreneur. My father, I'm an immigrant, and my father at a very young age with a young family decided to roll the dice and emigrate, and provided us additional opportunities. And in your journey as an entrepreneur, you might not be an entrepreneur now, you might be working now and working and thinking about entrepreneurism, right? And one of the things that I'd like to do today is hopefully that there's some pearls of wisdom that I'm able to impart on you that you could then go out and use that to motivate yourself, as well as some strategic ideas of things that you want to do now before you leave the workforce, now that you're planning. And for those of you who have already left the workforce and you're now an entrepreneur, hopefully some of the insights, strategies, and values that I can provide for you can help you to better attain the success that you're looking for. As we know, we can do really good jobs on our job, but we can't deed our jobs to our kids, right? We can't go into our boss and say, hey, listen, I've got a young cousin, and you know what? I'm going to switch out, and he's going to take my spot, all right? If it was that easy, everyone would be doing it. And so what I hope that you can, one of the things I hope that you can take away from this is to have the mindset, the strategy and skills to develop in yourself such that you can create that opportunity so that you can build a business, provide value to yourselves and your families, and hopefully be able to transition and leave a legacy, right? One of the good things about building a business is that at some point you can pass the business on to your children or your family, your heirs. And so that's something that we really have to look at, especially in the minority community, right? A lot of times we get education, we have good jobs, and then we get to a point where we retire from our good jobs with a nice retirement package, but there's nothing for us to transition over to someone else, right? And so along the way, if you keep up with the Empower series, you keep up with Cliff, and also find a way to network with me, we can find ways to help each of you to attain some of the levels of success that you want to long term. As Cliff mentioned, I spent some time at the Small Business Development Center. I was there 3.5 years. I was meeting with business owners every day, 5 days a week, 2 to 3 people per day. And over that time, I met with somewhere 1,500 to 1,800 folks that were entrepreneurs, people who are working their jobs and trying to transition, and provided a tremendous amount of value. And one of the things that I definitely want to highlight is that even though you're a W-2 employee, right, and you're working now, there are things that you can do ahead of time, strategic things, to make sure that when you launch, right, you're launching in the right way, all right? So we're going to go through here. Now let me just grab a little water here. Mouth is kind of dry. Okay, so the title of our talk today is How to Start a Small Business, all right? And business model innovation. So it's a term of art, it's fairly new. Business model innovation is not necessarily going out and inventing something new, but taking something that exists today and using it to create new value for yourself and also the marketplace. All right. All right. So most people are saying to themselves, I have a business idea, but I don't know how to get started. Right? How many of you have that thought? I think we've all thought that. All right. I'm stuck. All right. And many people feel that way. Peter Drucker, who is a known business advisor, successful business strategist, he crafts it by saying, every organization is based on a theory of business, which is a set of assumptions that define an organization's purpose, shapes its behavior, dictates the decisions about what to do and what not to do, and define what the organization considers meaningful. Now, a business model. How many of you have heard of business model? You commonly hear that. It's a new thing. A business model is a rationale of how an organization creates, delivers, and captures value, right? And in the business model, there's a concept that's called the business model canvas. And each of you have a copy of the canvas. And what the canvas allows you to do is to plot out in a one-page document the key components of a successful business. From there, it helps you to determine whether you can provide value or not. Because the customer value proposition, right? So when you think about a business, you're not starting a business so that you can get rich. You're starting a business to solve a problem, all right? And so one of the things that, from a strategic standpoint, as an entrepreneur, you want to know, because everyone has ideas, right? But so what, right? So if you go and talk to a venture capitalist or an angel investor or someone that's going to, your uncle Buck that's going to invest in your business. Hey, I've got an idea. And he's going to say, so what? And so you've got to be able to answer the so what. So I have this document that I prepared a couple of years ago, and it's what is business model innovation, all right? And the question I have here, the question I pose is, what can bananas teach you about business model innovation? And folks go, what the heck is bananas in business? What does that mean, right? So if the question is, if you're making a banana smoothie today, which banana are you going to be using for the smoothie? Are you going to use a green banana, the yellow banana, or the brown banana, right? And so one of the things we're going to do before we get started, before we break that down, all right, we're going to watch a video, and the video is going to be about the business model canvas. So a business plan is still important, all right? Definitely, if you're talking to investors, you're talking to a bank, a business plan is still important. What the business model canvas allows you to do is to break it down for yourself so that you can identify the key components. Because when you then put your business plan together, the bulk of the business plan, is going to be the financial, projections, right? That's the thing, that's the meat of what folks are looking for. So if you're talking to a VC, if you're talking to a bank about your idea, you certainly have to have a business model of like what market segment that you're going to go to. But so what the new concept is, you go with the canvas, breaks everything down, and what we're going to watch and see what the canvas entails.
An organization's business model can be described with 9 basic building blocks: your customer segments, your value proposition for each segment, the channels to reach customers, customer relationships you establish, the revenue streams you generate, the key resources and key activities you require to create value, the key partners, and the cost structure of the business model. But it's not sufficient to just enumerate the 9 building blocks. What you really want to do is to map them out on a pre-structured canvas. This is what we call the business model canvas, a tool that helps you map, discuss, design, and invent new business models. Let's briefly go through the 9 building blocks, starting with the customer segments. These are all the people or organizations for which you're creating value. This includes simple users and paying customers. For each segment, you have a specific value proposition. These are the bundles of products and services that create value for your customers. The channels describe through which touchpoints you're interacting with customers and delivering value. The customer relationships outline the type of relationship you're establishing with your customers. The revenue streams make clear how and through which pricing mechanisms your business model is capturing value. Then you need to describe the infrastructure to create, deliver, and capture value. The key resources show which assets are indispensable in your business model. The key activities show which things you really need to be able to perform well. The key partners show who can help you leverage your business model. Since you won't own all key resources yourself, nor you perform all key activities. Then once you understand your business model's infrastructure, you'll also have an idea of its cost structure. So with the business model canvas, you can map out your entire business model in one image. This works for startup entrepreneurs just as well as for the most senior executives.
Any questions that come to mind? Business model canvas.
No, when I was watching the video, what came to mind is that you can even find value in the business model canvas just in everyday life. All of the things that you do, not just business, but relationships, how you're functioning, your household. So I found that very interesting.
Yes, yes. I mean, that's definitely something that you can do. When I first found out about the canvas, at the time I was doing my MBA at University of Texas at Dallas, and we had a course on business model innovation. And after taking the course, I was like, I knew finance and I knew accounting and I knew strategy and all that kind of stuff, but innovation and entrepreneurship is very important. It's very important in our society. If you think of new products that we have day in and day out, they come not necessarily as a result of invention, but they come as a result of innovation. So how many of you have a Keurig coffee maker at home? Okay. And if you're familiar, whether you're familiar or not, the guys that created that company, they basically, one of the guys is, I think he had an internship and he was working and he went into the break room in the afternoon and needed a cup of coffee. And he saw a cup of coffee on the warmer and he was asking someone, hey, when, is this coffee fresh? And people are like, I don't know. It's, maybe it was made this morning. Maybe it was made 10 minutes ago. And so his innovative idea was, how do you create a fresh brew of coffee in every cup? And that thought process is what developed the company that became Keurig. Now, interestingly enough, Keurig built a lot of value for the founders and the early investors, providing warm drinks. And at some point, after building up a war chest of cash and a lot of value in the community, they decided, you know what? We want to be in cold drinks. You have a question?
Yeah, I do. As you were talking, I was thinking, which is, I'm sorry. You didn't say that. My question is that in developing this business model canvas, what is the prerequisite, this or the business plan?
This will lead you to the business plan.
Okay.
Because the business plan, typically if you're doing a business plan and presenting it to someone, it's probably, give or take, depending on the complexity, 20, maybe a couple of hundred pages, right? And when I say a couple hundred pages, it could be engineering designs, it could be a lot of financial modeling and so forth, right? But if you start there, you could get confused because it's a lot to process. The good thing about the canvas, it's a one-page thing. And you can get as detailed as you want to be. So you can start off pretty high level, right? And then you can start drilling down. And as you drill down, and we're going to show you some canvases of some of the companies that we know of today. But this is a concept where you start high level, then you start drilling down, and you start drilling down. As you get more developed with the canvas, you're going to learn that the customer value proposition is one of the key things in the canvas. That's what job is your product or service doing? What problem is your product or service solving? Because as an entrepreneur, those are the key questions that you have to ask yourself. Not only does your product or service need to solve a problem for you, but can you predict how well that product or service will solve problems for the marketplace, all right? And one of the things about being in business is the key thing is that the excess cash that your business generates goes on the balance sheet, and it allows you for other opportunities. So when Keurig built a massive war chest of providing hot drinks to the marketplace, they then looked forward and tried to anticipate how the market dynamics might change. And then they decided they wanted to be also in cold drinks because they had pretty much saturated how, the market, or at least they had gotten to the point where they thought that the growth in hot drinks were limited. And so they used their balance sheet and they acquired Dr. Pepper Snapple. And I don't know if many of you are familiar with that. But they announced that they were going to do a merger and acquisition. Right? They used their balance sheet. They paid a dividend to Dr. Pepper shareholders to then acquire the stock because they wanted also to be in cold drinks. Right? So the thing to think about in any situation, whether it's relationships, business, partnerships, you always want to think about the end in mind. What's your end result? Because if you think you're building a business so that you could provide for your family when you pass on or when you retire, you might not pass on, you might just decide to stop working, right? You want to provide. So when you think about the end in mind, it helps you to follow strategy and steps to build a better organization. So as we go through here, you're going to see, I tried to print this out, but it wasn't very legible. I don't even know if I can't even read it. So we're just going to pass through here. But here are some business model canvases for some businesses that we know. Amazon, right? So key partners, suppliers, transport partners, manufacturers for Amazon for goods, key activities. In every business, continuous improvement is a key activity, right? Because if you're not improving, then guess what? Competitors are going to take your market share from you, all right? The value proposition for consumers, low prices, fast delivery, large choices for sellers, Amazon Marketplace. How many of you have an Amazon storefront? Just getting started. Okay, my wife and I had one for years and years and years. And when our kids were little, it was something for them to do, for us to do with them. We bought books and we put them online and we sold books and then we gave the money to the kids. So it was something that something that we did to kind of help them think like entrepreneurs, right? You have your channels, B2C, website, customer relationships, customer segments. So these are all areas that you can go out and search and find canvases of businesses that you know, the products or services that you use, and look at their canvas and use that to try to figure out how to craft your canvas. We look at Netflix. How many of you are familiar with Netflix? All right. Netflix is a company. Think back way back when Netflix started. Who did Netflix disrupt? Who was the big dog on the street? All right. And what business was Blockbuster in? Videotapes. No. Blockbuster was in the real estate business. All right. Why would I say that? Where were the Blockbuster stores? But where were they? Right. They were adjacent to grocery stores. Because what did we used to do? We went grocery shopping we got paid on Friday or Thursday night or Friday. We went grocery shopping on Friday, and after we walked right into Blockbuster and got 7 tapes when we knew we could only watch 2. All right? And how did they get us? On those rewind fees, late fees, all right? Now, Blockbuster missed the boat because they didn't understand the business they were in. They thought they were in the movie business, but they were really in the real estate business. They invested heavily in huge big box stores. And they basically charged us, I remember when my wife got a Netflix account, was because Blockbuster charged her a bunch of late fees and rewind fees. All right. Now, interestingly enough, Netflix started, they were sending tapes and DVDs. They were mailing that stuff to you. Then they transitioned just to DVD. And Blockbuster had an opportunity to buy Netflix, but they didn't believe in the business model. All right? Because they were not innovative. The business model canvas and innovation allows you to think more innovative, not think, and that's why I said, you asked the question about the business plan. The reason why you have to shift to the business model canvas is because sometimes the market is moving fast. If, the other thing is this, and this is something that, Cliff and I talked about. There are folks that will go out and spend thousands of dollars getting a business plan made, and they haven't really determined whether their product or service is going to scale. And we don't want you to do that. You can have 1,000 of these and go, crap, and start over, right? But after you, if someone calls me up and say, hey, get me a business plan, and I say 5,000, and they go, oh, that's not bad. And then 2,000 for printing. Well, that's not bad. And another 1,000 for stapling, right? Now, you spent all that money on your business plan. Guess what? You're going to double down on that money that you spent, even though it's not scalable, right? So when you look at the business model canvas, so Netflix is a different company today than it was when it started, right? Because now Blockbuster, they displaced Blockbuster. Blockbuster's no longer around. And one of the big shifts that they had was when they went to streaming, right? And they've created a tremendous amount of value for their founders and their early investors, right? So you can go online and find these canvases and use that to help yourself think more innovatively, right? Here is business model canvas for Tesla. All right? Think about Tesla. All right? Now, think in terms of the automotive industry. You had huge incumbents that could have created enough value in a marketplace where Tesla wouldn't even have a chance to compete. All right? But, and so that's one of the things that you'll learn as an entrepreneur. You have to be nimble. You have to look out at the marketplace and see the winds of change that might be coming. All right? I'll give you an example of a company that actually invented an industry but chose not to pursue it. Does anybody know that story? For a book. Think of a company. For instance, how many of you remember Kodak? Okay. What business was Kodak in?
Pictures.
Huh?
Pictures.
Nope.
Printing.
Nope.
Memories.
Nope. Nope. Come again. Think deep. Dig. How do you develop pictures?
Instant. Copy.
Film. Okay, think about the film. Okay, getting closer. What do you need to develop the film? Well, okay, so he's getting close. So two things. On the paper, there's silver in the paper. In order to remove the silver from the paper to fix the images, what do you need? Chemicals. Who said that? All right. Winner, winner. All right. So Kodak was a chemical company. And sometimes the industry that you're in will dictate how you act. All right? Kodak actually developed, one of their engineers invented the digital camera. Sometimes the industry that you're in will dictate how you act. All right? So, for instance, McDonald's, they're a real estate company. All right? So everyone knows that. McDonald's, their locations are 2.5 miles from each location. It's not about the food. I mean, you don't go to McDonald's because the food's great. You go to McDonald's because they've got the best locations on every corner where you are, and your kids are kicking you in the back, going, Donald's, Donald's, and then you go, okay, I gotta go over there. And you might be at an intersection and you might want Jack in the Box or Burger King or wherever, but you gotta make a U-turn and go back and go down where McDonald's is right there. Because of their balance sheet, because they've been so successful as a company, they get the best real estate. And because they get the best real estate, they're able to continue to build their business. And so Kodak, they were in the chemical business. Their business was processing film, all right? The other thing with Kodak, Kodak had a big contract with the government. A lot of the reconnaissance film that spy planes use, that's where their business was. And you find, historically, if you look back, there are companies that did business with the government. It's not a competitive business, right? The government has a certain amount of money to spend, and every year you go in and you get a piece of that business. But if you are an entrepreneur and in a true marketplace, you've got to compete for business. So some of those companies that did a lot of government contracts, over years and years and years of doing government contracts, they lost the fitness to compete. And so they got lazy, all right? And so a lot of the new firms that you see that are in the marketplace today, a lot of guys that went to business schools, read a lot of case studies, came back and analyzed incumbent businesses and found ways to disrupt them. And that's what the business model canvas is talking about, all right? So now we go back. All right, if you're making a banana smoothie today, which banana are you using? So the green banana, if you're making soup, yeah, you're not gonna make a smoothie with a green banana. It's gonna taste yucky, right? The yellow banana could be good, but maybe that's the one that your kid wants to take for a snack. The brown banana, it's overripe, it's sweet. And you're using that today because tomorrow you've got to throw it out, all right? Or freeze it, all right? So if you're using the green banana and you make a smoothie, that's what you're going to end up. Kids are going to be like, all right? Just like bananas, with the task of making a smoothie, as an entrepreneur, you're faced with the task of deciding which ideas are green. All right? If you're an entrepreneur, if you don't know if your idea is green and you follow the green idea, the market might not develop. All right? Which idea is green, ripe, or overripe? So you've got to find the ideas. So green, not ripe enough to be used today, right? And if your business idea is not ripe enough to be used today to capture value from your customers, in the market segment you choose to pursue, then you can't create value for yourself, for your investors. Most of you, how many of you are married? Right? And if you're married, who's your first partner? Your first business partner is your spouse, right? Yeah. Whether they are or not, right? They can put a lot of pressure on your commitment to your business concept or idea, right? So if you force these business ideas, you would likely lose your investment of money or time. Think about it. What's more valuable to you today? Time. You can always make money. Can't make any more time. All right? And these are things that I want you to think about, right? In finance, we have a concept called opportunity cost, right? Something you get today for something you forego, right? Yellow banana. Maybe that's what you give the kids to take to school, all right? Proper analysis, decision-making can be the difference between business success and business failure, right? Again, if your first unofficial business partner is your spouse, all right, you've got to be careful about the decisions you make because it could be costly, right? Yellow bananas might be ripe enough to be used in a smoothie. However, the yellow banana, these business ideas might be just right or more valuable for different customers in a different market segment than the one you're planning. All right? So just a basic example, right? If the yellow banana in the smoothie equals 25 cents, the cost of the yellow banana in the smoothie is 25 cents, or the banana could be sold for $1, right? You would lose 75 cents in value, all right? If you use the banana in a smoothie versus selling it outright, right? And let's say that represented 3,000 units per day in a plant which operated for 6 days a week. Losses would represent $2,200 a day, $13,000 a week, $54,000 a month, or $648,000 a year. All right? So we go back to the question, what can bananas teach you about business model innovation? Right? You know, I mean, it's an oversimplification, right? But it's a way to think when you're thinking about your business idea, right? You might have an opportunity to invest, but you've got to do the strategic thing. You've got to think through the process, because there might be another product or service for your time and or your money or resources, all right? And you could be losing value. All right, the brown banana, bingo, overripe, use today or throw away, all right? Whether you're making soup or smoothie, what is your customer value proposition? We talked about that. What problems are you trying to solve in the customer's mind, not your mind, right? Think back to Keurig. The guy's in the break room, he wants a hot cup of coffee, but he wants a fresh, hot cup of coffee. And he's thinking, well, maybe other people want a cup of hot, fresh coffee. And so he's not just solving a problem in his mind. He's solving a problem for, I mean, how many of you have worked corporation and, you know, it's like 2 o'clock, and you're like, let me go get a cup of coffee. And you go in there and there's a coffee pot and you're like, crap, I got to make some coffee, right? But if there's a Keurig machine there, you just pop that thing in, make a fresh cup, and you're done, right? So you've got to think about what market segment is being represented. And do you have a tight nexus between a market segment and the problem that you're trying to solve, right? It can't just be like an ancillary, like, well, you know, people want hot, fresh cup of coffee, so I'm going to have a nice freshly squeezed orange juice, right? The nexus is not tight enough, right? And these are the things that you can do by yourself to kind of determine, help ferret out whether you've got a business idea. Now, we're going to talk about, let's just finish this. So go through, use today or throw away tomorrow. Okay, like brown bananas, these business ideas would be maximized if used today, right? So think about it. If you have an opportunity and you say, well, you know what? I can invest in this opportunity. I can make a certain amount of dollars today. But if you say, well, you know what? This other opportunity, how long is it going to take for that other opportunity to develop, right? And that's the opportunity cost when you're weighing, you know, when you're weighing two projects or two decisions. All right. I just want to plug one of my clients, Grease Bags. Have you guys ever heard of that company? All right. I helped this young woman. This young woman came into my office. It was a 9-month journey. She started with an idea. We worked with the business model canvas. So how many of you remember going to grandma's house and there's a can of grease on the stove? All right. All right. Most everybody remember that. Some people have 3. You know, you've got pork grease, chicken grease, fish grease. All right. All right. So this young lady who was an actress and singer, single parent mom, and she was living with her brother and her sister-in-law, and they had a couple of grease cans on the stove. And then what do you do with the grease cans? What do most people do? Take them outside, pour it in the yard, right? So some people do. Yeah. Okay, and some people do what? Even worse than pouring it outside in the grass. put it down the drain. All right? Especially if you don't own the house. You don't care. All right? Now, if you own the house, you're like, 6 months later, you call the plumber, and the plumber says, hey, we're going to have to replace this pipe. Then you're going to be. So, in her mind, what they were doing, they were pouring the grease outside. Now, when you pour the grease outside, you end up with that dead spot in your yard. Or you end up with your dogs out there just licking that spot all day long, right? And that could be cruelty to animals in today's day, right? Like, you had your dog licking the grass all day long? So she came up with this idea of having a biodegradable bag that you can pour the grease in. And so we worked on the canvas. She came in. I used to do this canvas every day. People would get mad. I'd show that video. And they're like, what the heck, we gotta listen to this video? And this is why I'm telling you this, because there are free resources. When I worked at the Small Business Development Center, there are small business development centers throughout the county. You can go in. If you are prepared and organized, they will help you. I helped this lady from start to going on TV to negotiating on the back end, negotiated with her shark on the numbers, and I'm still helping her today. All right? This lady, I'll tell you the story. This lady was in Allen. She went to the Allen Economic, the EDC. So there are EDCs all over, right? Every city has an EDC. So if you live in Lancaster, DeSoto, Copper Hill, wherever, there's an EDC. Resources that you pay for already, all right? Now, if you're not prepared, you go in, they're going to say, hey, get out of here, all right? But if you walk in with a business model canvas filled out, they're like, okay. And then you say, well, that's my one concept. Then my second concept. They're going to be like, okay, all right. Now they have to help you. Now they can't just shoo you away. But if you walk in and go, hey, I got a business idea, I'm thinking about doing this thing. I want to be a rapper, but I also want to sing, they're going to be like, okay, all right, man, this guy, is not prepared, right? I'm going to tell this story. So this is really interesting. This young lady came into our office. Now, in the office I worked in, you had to submit your questionnaire to see an advisor. And she came in that one afternoon, and she was wearing regular clothes, and she looked like a teenager. I mean, looked like a teenager. And she's like, I got this business idea. I was at Allen, blah, blah, blah. And our admin was like, well, you haven't filled out the stuff. And then I'm looking outside, and I can see her going like, I'm here. Like, why I got to fill stuff out? So I went outside, introduced myself, and then started working with her. Like I said, it was a 9-month journey from the day she walked in to the day she got awarded a spot on the show. And then after the show, we ended up working together. So this is a testament for this, all right? Now, I've had other people that have come in, and I've walked them through this, and it's been successful. That's just one person, all right? So there she is on Shark Tank. Now, interestingly enough, she wanted Lori to be her shark because Lori had a lot of QVC and stuff like that. But Lori doesn't eat fried chicken. So it didn't work, all right? And Lori was like, I don't eat fried chicken. And Mark Cuban's up here somewhere. I think Mark's over here because he was kind of like, I'm out. Where? Is that? Okay, all right. Okay, yeah, because there's, so Cuban, Barbara Corcoran, Kevin, Lori, and I can't remember that guy's name. But anyway, so that show is out on YouTube. You can go look at it. When you look at that show, that is a testament that the canvas works, all right? And if you never heard about the canvas, all right, I understand it's innovative stuff, all right? But when you go back, now that it's in your stream of consciousness, now that you're thinking about being an entrepreneur, thinking about putting together a business idea, a business plan, you're going to find a lot of information about canvases, all right? And if this is the first time, then you should be thinking of me because I introduced you to it. And my kids. All right. High fives. I charge high fives. My wife and kids, they actually like money, so, they'll come to you and say, well, I know you got this high five plan, but you know what? All right, so here's some key questions that you have to ask yourself as an entrepreneur. Do you have entrepreneurial spirit, right? Because, if you don't like dealing with people, being an entrepreneur is going to be kind of hard, right? Because remember, most of what you need to be successful in business is owned and controlled by someone else. So if you're opposed to talking, it's going to be pretty difficult. However, now what you do, hang on a second, let me grab some water.
Hey, Keith, I got a question before you get into
Sure.
this. So a lot of times when you go to a class that says, okay, here are the steps to start a business, you go into a conversation about, okay, what is your business structure? What is your name? What's your location? What's your product? Like, you can jump into that stuff. And we were talking about this. You can easily come out of here with the steps to create a LLC, open up a bank account, start selling some of your cookies or whatever you want to sell and start making some money. But if you slowly rolling back up, what you're talking about here of coming up with the business canvas, it's not the sexiest thing to do, but this is the first step.
Right.
Right?
Right.
And that's what you're saying. It's like when you go in and use free resources that you've already paid for, their test of seriousness is, have you thought through your process well enough to complete a business canvas?
Right.
I just wanted to kind of say, that's what you're telling us,
Yes,
right?
that's exactly what I'm saying. Because, you guys, how many of you have heard of SCORE? Okay. And then how many have heard of the Small Business Development Center? And then how many have heard of the SBA? All right. So the SBA, the Small Business Administration, which is an agency of the U.S. government, basically gets funding from the government to provide investment training for business. Now, here's a statistic that most of you have never heard of. Well, I'll ask a question for another book and see who comes out of it, who comes up. And Greg is not allowed to play. Greg is he's a business associate of mine. He probably knows the answer, so he can't play this game. All right. So, No, we talked about this a couple of days ago. All right. So, think of this question. What percentage of businesses in North America, let's just say the United States, what percentage of businesses in the United States have revenues of more than $1 million a year? Yeah, what percentage? No, more than one. Huh? 3%. No, more than 3.
20.
No, less than 20.
15.
No, less. All right, okay, so I'm going to tell you that. It's interesting that you guys said 1% because a lot of times folks go the other way. They're like, percentage of companies that have sales of like more than $1 million. Did I say more or less than $1 million? What did I say? More. Yeah, people think like 50%, a big number. It's not. It's a very small number because most businesses in America are small business, right? They're big corporations, right? And there's, Fortune 500 is only 500 companies, right? And, S&P 500 is only 500 companies, right? When you think about the Dow is like 30 companies, the 30 largest companies. Most companies are small. So only 6% of companies, and in North America, so United States, Canada, and Mexico, only 6% of companies have revenues of more than $1 million. So the reason why the SBA, the Small Business Administration, is there is to help provide guidance and direction and funding for small businesses, right? Because small businesses is the engine of our community, right? Because, big companies lay people off. I mean, it's a business decision. Like, hey, you got to go, all right? And then you've got to figure out what to do, right? And most people, when they get displaced, they become entrepreneurs, right? So, so there's a lot of funding and support out there. But when you go, you've got to be prepared, right? Especially in our communities, you can't walk in with a question, question mark on your head, because then folks are going to be like, okay, that's another way for folks not to deal with you. So what I'm trying to tell you and trying to educate and providing is be prepared. Because now when you have, like, you've got this, then they go, at least they know that you've done some work. Because the alternative is to going to get a business plan, and that's going to cost you a lot of money. And if you haven't really thought out whether that market segment or that product is viable, now you've wasted a lot of money and time. All right? Do you often think about how to create value and build new businesses, or how to improve and transform your organization? If you're working, you might be in a situation where you're thinking about that. Those are questions to ask yourself to kind of attest to see if you're moving in the right direction. Do you try to find innovative ways of doing business to replace old, outdated business ideas, right? So like the coffee machine, stuff like that, the Keurig, All right, so we're gonna go to the steps, but before we go to the steps, definitely wanna kind of circle back on the resources. So there are EDCs, Economic Development Corporations, in almost every city, in almost every county. There are resources. Then you have the Small Business Development Centers. There are 946 SBDCs throughout the United States. All right. The main SBDC in North Texas is at El Centro College. And that controls all of North Texas, which goes down to McLennan County, goes west out to Weatherford, east to Tyler, and north to Grayson County. All right? And so they have a center, and typically when you go on their website, you're going to have to complete a questionnaire, and based on the questionnaire will determine the level and the promptness of the service that you're going to receive. In addition to the SBDC, you've got SCORE. Now, SCORE is a little bit different, but the same. SCORE is like, they're going to be retired professionals, and if you're ready to run, they can run real fast. They might not help you with the basic, there's something, because you think about it. If it's a retired professional that has a lot of experience, they're going to be wanting you to, like, hey, do you have a business? Are you going? Versus like sitting around and talking about whatever. All right. So SCORE is there, but you've got it. When you go into SCORE, you got to be ready to roll. All right. Question.
So one of the things, if you have your PC with you now, if you just Google SCORE and business model canvas, you see that the other thing that SCORE does is they provide a lot of low-cost courses and on-demand courses. So again, we're talking about resources that you've already paid for. If you want to educate yourself beyond this on how to create a business model canvas, there are online courses you can take that SCORE provides. So those are all resources available to get you up to speed so that you are prepared when you're talking to a consultant and they want to take you to the next level.
That's true. We had a couple of questions right here.
So when in the process are you concerned about someone stealing your idea, whether that's a copyright or trademark or something of that nature?
Good question. So in general, whenever you have a business idea, there's a concept called your secret sauce. So you can share the periphery of your idea without sharing the secret sauce. A lot of times folks will say, hey, they're trying to talk to an angel investor or private equity, and they go, you got to sign this NDA. And most guys are like, man, I don't have time for that. So you've got to find within your concept parts of your concept on the outside that doesn't exactly talk about your secret sauce. And then that way you can engage folks. Now, if you obviously, if it is pretty novel, then that's where that can get pretty expensive, right? Because if you want to do trademarks, there's some expense involved, and then patents is even more expensive, right? So, but one of the things that you want to do though is you kind of want to do your own research to kind of see, because you don't want to just go out and say, if you go to a patent attorney and say, I need a patent, then okay, $50,000. And then if you haven't done a canvas and you don't, you're spending money and you might not be able to monetize that idea. So within the concept, you want to be able to kind of figure out. And then what I would do is I would talk to close friends and family, because I mean, if they steal your idea, then they can't come to family reunions anymore. But that's one way to kind of get some traction. And then at some point, you'll find out. You'll be like, man, this stuff, And then, and then again, do you know what your funding sources are? So your first funding source is yourself, right? The second funding source is called F, and F. Friends, family, and fools. All right.
Hey Keith, I think you've done a tremendous job, and I've known you for a long time. And this is an element that I have not seen you in, so I think I'm wowed by this. And I would say, we've all heard of the term elevator pitch, right? And where if you were to meet a stranger on the elevator, you're to tell them within 2 minutes or to the time you get to the floor what your business is about. Think of the canvas as your elevator pitch for your business plan, because if you take your business plan and drop it off to 1,000 investors, well, guess what? Other people have done that same thing. You're more apt they're more apt to see your canvas than your business plan. They see thousands of ideas and over a month's time. So to take them a 100-page business plan versus a 1-page, they're going to look at that, and then if they're intrigued, then they'll go into the business plan. So I would certainly put more effort on the canvas than anything else, and from the canvas, take for your business plan, elaborate your business plan from the canvas.
Thank you, Greg, for the kind words. I didn't even bribe him to tell him to say those kind words. But he is correct, right? So, and that's something, and here, I'm talking about it, and he actually mentioned what the business canvas is. It's your elevator speech for your business plan. And that's a good way to think about it, right? Because, it's like if you get on a plane and someone says, hey, what do you do? And you're like, well, blah, blah, blah. Halfway through the flight, you're still, yeah, blah, blah, then they're like going, hey, pressing that button. Man, get me away from this guy, right? So, and that kind of ties back into your question, of a simple way of putting some representation where you can have a discussion, where you can have those discussions but not give away the secret sauce, so to speak, all right? And then maybe get some feedback, and that'll kind of, if you start getting the type of feedback where you go, you know what, I might need to protect this idea, then you can talk to an attorney and say, okay, what's the most cost-effective way? I mean, the ideal way is to go get a patent, right? But even then, that's very expensive, and can you really scale the market? Was there a question over here? No? All right, so resources are free. You had a question?
Okay, one of the things that I went into a partnership with 5 other individuals, right? And we started our e-commerce business. But one of the things that we had to think through was that being cognizant of the fact that we had to think through all of the stages, because what will happen is that you're going to have copycatters anyway. So what they're going to do is that they're going to see how you have scaled a new idea, and automatically it's going to be stolen. So be cognizant of the fact that you have already thought through the end game, so that regardless of what someone else comes in and look at what you have created, you're still ahead of the market.
Right.
So I'm just making that comment.
And that's a good point, and kind of ties into something I'm going to talk to you guys about. When we talk about steps to creating your business, and I think this says a lendable business credit. And typically, you have to think in terms of, like, borrowing. Well, let me ask this question, and then this book is up. So, if you're an entrepreneur, which is better, borrowing money or getting an equity partner? What? Borrowing money. Okay, man. Okay, well, I only have one book. They're right. Because when you borrow money, you keep 100% of the company. All right? The interest, I'm not a CPA, the interest is tax deductible, right? And it's a business expense that basically, and whereas if you take on partners, you start diluting yourself. So interesting enough, we talked about Keurig. The guy who started Keurig, he was so particular, anal retentive, in the glue on the top and the hole punch on the bottom and making sure the water went straight through and all that, that every time, it was the kind of glue, it doesn't last and the beans are not as fresh. And he kept going back to the investors, I need some more money because I've got to reiterate the K-cups and this and that. And he's basically, every time he went back for more money, guess what? He got diluted. And then when he was at 49%, they were like, listen, man, boom. They kicked him out of the company, brought in another guy to run the company. I mean, he still owned shares, but he was no longer the CEO. He was no longer the chief executive, the chief decision maker. And sometimes, and this is the other thing also, when you're an entrepreneur, you might not be, there's what is called the Moses effect. All right, remember Moses saw the promised land, but he didn't go in. Sometimes you're not the guy. And you've got, that's another thing. It's hard to do because if it's your idea, it's hard to go, well, I'm no good and let me fire myself, right? But you keep bringing on investors, they will do that decision for you. They will put you out. You'll still retain your equity. You just won't be the chief decision maker. So tying back to your question, the type, if you form a company, most people when they form a company, they form it in a county. I like to recommend go and form it in the state. Get an entity, an LLC, because copycats, if someone want, if you form a business in Dallas County and you got the best, neck bone barbecue place in the city and you got a line wrapped around the building, what's going to happen? Someone's going to go to Tarrant County and start the same business, right? And then that's where you're going to have the copycat effect. However, if you form the Winky Dinky Dog Neck Bone Barbecue Shop LLC in the state of Texas, no one can copycat. I mean, they can, but you can either give them a license by saying, hey, I know you've been using my idea. Guess what? You now got to pay me $10,000 a month or, whatever. Or you issue a cease and desist and shut them down, right? So some companies will take, one strategy or the other, right? Where like big companies do this all the time. They'll have patents. People use their patents. And they'll let them use it. They'll let them come in and develop a market around a patent they have that they don't know what to do with the patent. And then after these companies or startups or whatever develop a marketplace, they come tap them on the shoulder. Hey, bro, here's the agreement. You guys are doing so many millions. Here's our fee. And if you don't plan to pay our fee, we're ready to shut you down. And then folks will be like, okay, fine, I'll pay the fee, right? Because there's a licensing fee. So that kind of protects you in the event that someone is going to be stealing your idea. So anyway, I can send you guys, Cliff or I can send you this list, the perfect startup. There's certain steps, but we talked about the one step is to protect yourself state level as opposed to county level. There's some other things that we can go through in some specifics, but this is more of advanced. Mainly, what you're trying to do here is have an entity, have a business address as opposed to your home, right? Get a license if you're required to have a license. Now, Texas is one of the easiest places to operate business. Typically, unless if you're a real estate person or a CPA or whatever, you need a license. But in Texas, you don't really need a license. A lot of stuff, a lot easier than other states. Make sure you get an EIN number, all right, to identify the business separate from yourself. Business bank account. Whoops. Either the battery's dead or something. Hang on a second. Oh. All right. All right. Business fax numbers aren't necessarily needed, but business number definitely, email address for your business, website. These are things that you can do along the way. DUNS number, that's very important. DUNS number is like it's the business social security number, right? And the Dun & Bradstreet is what holds your business credit rating. And that's something that you want to do earlier than later. And here's some ways to get that. And so, how many of you feel that the information you learned today was worth the price that you paid? All right. So you know when you're in church and you get the sermon, and then the minister's gonna be like, "All right, how many want it?" No, special offering. No, we're not doing that today. We're not doing that today. Anyway, so again, my name is Keith Otto. The concept here is how to start a business. We talked about business model innovation, using new ways, new ideas to create new opportunities for yourself and for your business and the communities that you're in, and hopefully for your family. All right. Just a small note. This is something that I'm passionate about. I'm writing a paper on this. So economics in the African American community. Each year we bring it, last year we brought in $1.7 trillion, the equivalent to the 7th largest economy in the world, like Canada, all right? However, in our community, actually, this is for the book. So, some statistic. In the United States, the Hispanic community, a dollar stays in the Hispanic community about 33 days. I'm sorry, in the Asian community, about 33 days. In the Hispanic community, about 26 days. In the Jewish community, about 21 days. How many days does a dollar stay in the African American community?
3 days, 6 hours.
Okay, so he first said less than 1 day. But the answer is, well, Greg, you don't count. We talk about this stuff all the time. So you're right. It's exactly 6 hours. But no, he said less than a day. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. So here's the thing. Based on that, what does that tell you? That means in the African American community, for the most part, we don't own any real estate, right? For the most part, we're more employees than business owners, all right? So one of the benefits that you want to do when you think about it, becoming a successful entrepreneur, is to make sure that part of your strategic planning is to try to buy the real estate that you're operating your business in. Because if you're just paying rent, it's just like living in an apartment paying rent, right? Eventually you transition to get your own home, and you can build wealth as an individual through home ownership. Same with a business. You can build wealth in your business by having ownership in the real estate that your business is operating. So those are some of the things to think about. And I think, part of my research is, I think that the emerging economy, one of the emerging economies, is in the inner city, all right? Because, like big corporations like to say, oh, we're going to go overseas, we're going to do this and invest over here. But I think an emerging economy is in the underserved economy. There's real estate. I mean, if you see a shopping center, all right, those stores, those businesses there, they pay rent to someone, all right? So start marshaling the efforts to maybe put your group together. I don't know your group. You've got your group. Put your group together. Put your group together. Put your group together, all right? And figure out what you need to do. You might not have a tolerance for real estate, but you might have a tolerance for something else, right? And those are some of the things that I'm recommending. Start coming together, because it's not enough to just sit around and go, oh man, the man, this, whatever excuses, right? Start putting resources together and investing. All right?
Being a gentleman that come from, it's only been here for, 7 months.
Uh-huh.
I come from Detroit, Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
I just moved here. What's one piece of advice that you can say that that you can pass down to me to get me started on the right track in Texas?
So what do you do now currently?
I'm a process engineer at WebTech Corporation.
Okay. So one of the things, start networking. So you say you've only been here, 7 months?
Yes.
Okay. So first thing is start networking, like what you did today. Meet folks, meet Cliff, meet B, you got Mark, get cards from everyone.
Okay.
And find an organization like this, like I said, this center, the guys that put this together are some major hitters, right? So you guys heard of Phil Romano. Was it Macaroni Grill, Eatsies? He's a real estate, a restaurant entrepreneur, there are connections, so start connecting. If you come in here and have lunch during the middle of the day, there are guys in here that are movers and shakers, right? And so one of the things that you've got to do is start networking. You're in a new spot, try to figure out, what groups you can join, meet individuals that are, like-minded, folks that are moving forward or progressing, and then determine, whether you have the stomach to be an entrepreneur, right? Like if you've got a pretty good job and your bills are paid and all that kind of stuff, you can go through the steps of creating an entity and wait to see, right? But if it's marginal, then I would say don't do it because, but the main thing is start networking. Start networking and find out, start meeting folks and try to determine what area you want to be in. So that's what I would recommend. Sorry.
So how many people are familiar with the mayor's initiative for franchise ownership and diversifying that? How many people have heard of that? How many people are familiar with Mayor Eric Johnson's initiative to diversify franchise ownership? All right, so here's what I would ask you to do. Engage, connect with the Empower series. If you're new in town and you want to meet people, I would say this is the spot, you're in the right place. Some of the speakers who've been on the Empower series are very involved in the community and encouraging entrepreneurship and diversifying it. So the city of Dallas has an initiative that they launched this month, and they have a series of events to really diversify the face of franchise ownership in the southern sector of Dallas. He's created an advisory board that is headed by an attorney named Carlos White, and Carlos White has been a multiple speaker on the Empower series. So if you Google Carlos White and the Empower series, you'll see some of his programs. He is the #1 franchise attorney in Dallas. And then we have other people on that advisory committee like Calvin Golden. Calvin Golden worked with the owner or the founder of Wingstop, and he actually franchised Wingstop, developed the franchise model, sold the first 13 franchises here in Texas, in Dallas area, owned a few himself, and was just recently sold all of his franchises, and now he's doing consulting, and he wants to help encourage minorities to be entrepreneurs. So he's on the advisory board. Roland Parrish, he owns over 30 McDonald's here in the area. He's on the advisory board. Sarah Dix, who's with Chase, she's the head of community and diversity. I'm not sure if I'm getting her title right, but the point is there are people who are connected to the Empower series who can help you. And they're all about relationship building. Dr. George Frazier, Dr. Dennis Kimbrough, these people are all accessible. So I would say you're in the right place. But this initiative, if you just Google it, you'll find out that they want to do 2 cohorts. They want to make sure that if you're an existing business owner, that you've thought through your process to make your business franchisable or scalable so that you can become a franchisor. If you've got a business concept that's profitable, why don't you design it in the way that the founder of Wingstop designed his and made it a franchise? And look at what he's doing now. Or that's one part. The other part is that if you're looking at starting a business, one of the key ways is to start a franchise, to be a franchisee. So how do you investigate the different franchise opportunities out there and take advantage of them? So this initiative and advisory board that Mayor Eric Johnson has created is to make sure that more minorities participate in the franchise business on either end. and they're creating a bunch of events. So definitely Google it. I think the first event is happening sometime in March. But stay connected with the Empower Series and myself, and I'll give you more information about that. Any other questions?
So you have your business plan. You got your canvas. Next step is raising capital. Talk about 3 Fs. How do you raise capital if you don't know anybody? What would you do, other steps to go in that direction?
So first thing is go into your network. So the first place you go is to, family and close friends. So because family, so a couple ways to look at it. Remember, your goal is to try to, before you start diluting yourself out, to try to keep, because if you go to your first, let's say your Uncle Buck, and you give him 50% of the business, unless you have an agreement that says that you guys are going to dilute at the same rate going forward, the next time you raise capital, Uncle Buck's like, hey, I own 50%. You have to give up your shares. So you might end up now, your 50% is now down to 30%. All right. Uncle Buck still has his 50. A new investor that you brought in has 30%, has 20%. You have 30%. And then you could be in this, when you go to now your third round, now you're down to 10%. Now are you still going to be motivated to do that business if you now own, 10%, 20%? Probably not. So one of the things, the reason why you want to start with friends and family is a lot of times they're not going to hit you real hard with, friends, like your family is going to say, all right, I'll lend you some money or I'll put some money in, and, they're not going to hit you really hard. Now, from a purely finance standpoint, when you think in terms of an investor making an investment, early stage, there's going to be a harder dilution. So it means they're going to want more equity in your company the more unproven your business idea is. If you're generating revenues and let's say you're not profitable because your product is a loss leader, right? Then bringing money in can help create working capital while you work on building better margins, right? So that's a little bit more advanced, but to tie back to your original question is, if you need money, where do you go? Friends and family. That's the round where it's going to have limited dilution, limited amount of equity that you have to give up in exchange for their investment. So FF and F, friends, family, and then fools. You might have a buddy, from high school that, dad died, got a bunch of money, and he's like, yeah, man, I'll give you some money. Just you continue to be my homeboy, I'll invest in your business. And you're like, okay, great.
Any other questions? We got a chance for a few more.
I just wanted to comment for him. I don't know if sometimes
Aaron.
I'm not sure the gentleman
Aaron?
that was asking about the money.
Aaron.
If he didn't know anybody.
She's giving you some insight.
So crowdfunding, which is the friends family, is a form of that. But there's also that microloan. They have Impact Ventures is associated with them. You should reach out to them too because they have a fund for diverse minority entrepreneurs. So if you're limited on if you're truly limited on your network, because what somebody told me, which was very true, go through your cell phone and see how many people would give you money if you were in a bind, and you'll probably find some money. But there's some other microloan like this 0% if you can get a small amount of your network, that kind of thing. And then I had a question about finding. I'm still looking for capital. Mm-hmm. I'm more of a social entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of people think I'm a nonprofit, but I'm not, because that comes with a different set of strings. Mm-hmm. So if there's anything else, around capital for like a social entrepreneur, I'd be interested in hearing about that.
Okay.
I think one of the things you want to consider when looking for capital is my business going to be a lifestyle business, meaning I'm just going to own this forever, or is this business going to be something that I'm going to build, scale, and then sell? you'll get two different types of investors. If it's a lifestyle business, you'll probably end up borrowing it. Equity investors want to get their money in, be out in 2 or 3 years, and invest their money again. So first thing you guys need to know is what type of business you want to have, and then that way you won't waste your time going to the wrong investors.
That's a good point.
As a entrepreneur, social enterprise is what you were speaking of a moment ago. And what I've registered my business is as a L3C. And not many people have heard about that. You can't register it in Texas. Mine is registered in Wyoming. But I have as a foreign entity here in Texas. So that's something that you can look into. You can get investments, and also you can get donations through that.
So as we wrap this up, I always say that this is not the end. It's the what? It's the beginning. So it's the beginning of networking. So Keith, thank you, my brother.
Okay, all right.
You gonna leave me hanging, man?
Oh.
So definitely. So if you have ideas that you want to take the next steps on, it's about connecting to resources. So definitely, Keith is a resource. The Small Business Development Center is a resource. If you haven't participated and used the resource partners of the SBA, SCORE is a resource partner. The Small Business Development Center is a resource partner. The Women's Development Center is a resource partner. And then VBOC for veterans are resource partners, and they're nationwide. I would like to hear, as a result of this workshop, what are some of the actions that you're going to take, since you're not just going to sit here and listen to everything, be inspired, and not do anything about it, because ideas are in actions. What are some of the actions that you're going to take as a result of being a part of this workshop? Okay, purchase your LLC. What else? Or create your LLC. What else? Complete your business model canvas. How many people are going to do that? Everybody's hand should be raised, because you can't. Call Keith. Right on. You know, so I would say the first step, if you have an idea, complete the business model canvas. You have questions about that, definitely. You have Keith here. Everyone received an email from me with some links to some articles. If you did register, did everybody get that email? If you registered, I have your email and you'll get that information. You did have questions, so we'll make sure that Keith or I will get back with you with the specific answer to those questions that you had. If you're online streaming, so thank you for participating. Thank you for thank everybody for spending their most precious resource, their time and their life with the Empower series. And like I said before, do not keep this a secret. Thank you for watching our Empower series YouTube video. I really hope you enjoyed it. Remember to hit the subscribe button below, as well as the little button to be notified the next time we upload our video. Until then, stay connected with us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, whatever your social media flavor is. Inspire the world to thrive. See you soon.